All right, there we go. There's recording. Hey, I'm going to talk about Supergirl movie, which I watched recently. Well, I didn't watch all of it due to the fact that the movie theater where I watched the Supergirl movie oh had a fire alarm being pulled. So I missed the last 8 to 10 minutes of film. But I basically seen all of it, and I also went onto YouTube and the scoured internet for hints of how it actually ended, and so I basically know everything about the film. So I've essentially watched all the film. Uh, this video built me rambling a lot about my opinions of the Supergirl movie, so there's gonna be a minimal amount of cuts. If I ramble or I stutter too much or have too much of a pause, I will s- uh, skip through it. But basically, I'm just gonna play and talk about my opinions of the film. First and foremost, the film itself I think was pretty alright. It was very much 6 out of 10. It got a 6 out of 10 on IMDb, and it very much did deserve that rating. There was nothing special about it, nothing terrible. If you want a comic book style superhero movie, that kind of really scratches, this movie really does scratch your itch. Personally, honestly, the more I think about it, it probably for me is slightly more than a 6 out of 10, probably 6.5, maybe even a 7 out of 10. Though that being said, that is quite a biased opinion due to the fact that the most recent film, that superhero film that I watched, was the Supergirl 1984 movie. So, compared to that, this movie may as well have been made by an Oscar, may as well be an Oscar nominee film due to the fact that, my God, it was so much better than that stupid goddamn 1984 Supergirl. I said in the video where I reviewed the 1984 Supergirl movie, it took me 4 days and 3 sessions to watch that thing because half an hour in, I went, I can't take anymore, and I had to stop. And then another half an hour in, I went, I can't take anymore, I have to stop. It was not fun. This was actually fun. The acting was good, the action was good, the effects were good, like there was a coherent amount of logic to everything. I do see people's complaints when it came to certain things like dialogue choices and stuff. That at times did feel like a bit more lackluster. The actors themselves did a great job. Lobo from Jason Momoa, Millie playing Supergirl is good. The girl who played Rufy, apparently that's how it's pronounced Rufy. I never knew that. She also did her job very well. She played the comic book character very well. The very kind of fish out of water, goes on these long monologues and soliloquies explaining stuff. The movie itself, as I expected, was very similar to the comic book series, Woman of Tomorrow. Of course, there's a few major differences, like I said, like how Rufy and her whole family was actually quite different. Again, Rufy and Krem, the main bad guy, were both people who lived on they came from an Iron Age planet, and in the movies, as you could see, was exactly how Krem is dressed. He's a more sci-fi pirate and already a member of the Brigands, which was a vast improvement, I think, from the comic books, where this Iron Age hooligan was just picked up and somehow managed to become the most dangerous thing in the galaxy, which was kind of stupid. They proved that improved on that was Krim already being a violent, crazy space pirate brig brigand that needed to be stopped, and that really was a good improvement. Uh, Most of the stuff you see in the trailer, like Supergirl partying, that happens all in the work within the first like 10 minutes of the film. So you just see her getting drunk at partying, hanging out with Crypto, eating cereal, having coffee to try to stave off her hangovers. Those were all minor things that happened in the beginning of the movie, which is smart for a trailer to do. Ryuth, again, in the comics, she had 5 brothers who all were very much alive, and only the father ever died. The mother, in fact, cheered her on to go after, or encouraged her to go after Krem. Oh, wait, spoilers for this movie. I'm gonna talk about the plot and everything. But if you read the comics, you kind of have an understanding how it goes. The brothers were very much alive. Only the father was a real victim from Krem. Rufy went hunting again for Krem by herself, while while her brothers and mother stayed back at the farm. Whereas in this, her father, first and foremost, was a very good blacksmith who made very good weapons, hence why she has a sword and everything. And then so actually, that is another variant from the comics, where the comics, Krem's Krem uses a sword that he was given by his king to kill Ruffy's father, and then Ruffy then uses the sword from their father's body to try and extract revenge. Whereas this time, the sword itself was always her father's, one of his many great works, and of course, her whole family and her farm was completely destroyed and burnt down. And Krem, of course, in the movie compared to the comics, was given a lot more character. What his main character thing, I guess, in this thing was the fact that he liked eating food, which that was just kind of his gimmick for the whole time. Krem was obviously being arrogant and cocky. Krem was kind of a cliche bad guy. His one difference compared to like the other cliche bad guys you might see is that he really liked to snack on stuff. He ate pie, he ate bugs, he drank milk, he nibbled on bread. Like he just literally anytime he was shown when he wasn't shooting a guy and he wasn't in a fight scene, he was just eating or drinking something, which is an interesting which is an interesting quirk, which I do like. I do enjoy a character who is fond of snacking. Uh, Continuing on the film, what happens next? I'm trying to recall. Oh yeah, Supergirl's drunk on a plan where Ruffy is located, and Ruffy uses a sword to try and buy someone, much like in the comics. A dude just takes the sword from her and tries to leave with it, and Supergirl comes and stops her. Of course, the guy who steals the sword from Ruffy is actually a bug alien, which is pretty cool because it's always nice to just see alien life on a planet. Because like, person in the comics was just a kind of buff dude. Because well, again, her planet never experienced anything like an alien before. But here, aliens exist. She's part of a planet that has space travel. She encounters an alien, and Supergirl, of course, intervenes. She gets a nice fight scene. Though I have to say the action in this film was a bit lackluster compared to the Superman film. A big part of it was just the way it was shot. Like a lot of times, maybe it's because the actress herself isn't exactly used to action films, but there's a lot of times it's the way it's shot and cut around where the camera's moving. It's hard to see her face, and there's plenty of times where you're clearly understanding the wig that she's wearing is completely covering her face due to the fact that it's a stunt double that's doing the job for her. Other times, you just don't. It's shot for like waist only, waist height only, and maybe it's because the movie theater I was in, but the lighting did not help things because a lot of times I'm speaking specifically of the house hallway fight scene where it was very shot very tight and you couldn't see really their head. Saw like their midsections only really. And it was also of course shaky cam, which also didn't help things. And of course, you never got a clean look of Millie's face. Yeah, a lot of times when the fight scenes happen, her face was covered due to the fact that I have a feeling that they replaced it with they had a stunt double doing all the action scenes for her. Uh, which is fine. It was disappointing in the sense that yeah, you saw that it was clearly not her doing the action scenes, and because it wasn't her doing the action scenes, they had to really shoot around her, which was a bit of a shame. But again, it's not the worst. It's not the worst fight scenes ever. They're still coherent enough. The lighting, I'm just specifically thinking of the hallway scene, which was the shot the worst, in my opinion. Maybe it's the fact that they also had less time to choreograph that fight scene. Um, so if you've seen the film, I'm also rambling. Let me go back to a more linear retelling. Rufy sees Supergirl retrieve her sword and asks her to fight and kill Krem for her. Supergirl, of course, is like, don't do that. Don't just go around killing people. You're an innocent kid. Starting to kill people for revenge won't really help you in the long run. And then, of course, Krem comes along. So Rufy's in the well, during the destruction of Rufy's home and farm, her father did manage to blow up Krem's ship, which is so now Krem is looking around for a ship. Krem finds Rufy talking to Supergirl and sees the ship that Supergirl owns and is like, "Hey, I don't like Rufy, and she's talking to a person who might be her friend. I'm going to take that ship because I need the ship." And then he shoots Crypto, obviously. Oh, yeah, and he snacks on Supergirl's Cheerios. Because again, whenever he's shown, he's always snacking on something. Much like in the comics, Crypto is poisoned, and they need an antidote. And they need an antidote that only the Brigands have. So Crypto has about 3 days, and it's 3 days, and the two go hunting for Krem. Still editing this thing really quickly, I have to mention how they also very clearly state in the beginning of the movie that with Crypto being poisoned, he was too weak to be able to travel, so that he could not. So it wasn't safe to try and carry him to a yellow sun because he might die in the process. So he has to stay on the planet of the red sun, just in case someone thought that there was a plot hole right there. There isn't. Or correction, Supergirl goes hunting for Krem. Rufy's like, "Hey, take me with you. We both want revenge." It's like Supergirl's like, "Hey, I'm just going to get the cure for my dog. We are not going to kill him. In fact, you are not coming with me because you are probably a liability and also will try to kill him." So she boards a space bus, much like in the comics, but this time the space bus makes sense because they're on a planet where space travel is very common. Rufy quickly sneaks onto the bus behind her, and then they're in the bus scene. The space bus scene, the comics, they pay homage to Lena Danvers by having her pay a homage to Lena Danvers by giving her by having Supergirl eat some take drugs and have because that was just kryptonite drugs, which were just a thing apparently. Which again, actually now thinking about it, kind of stupid. Which she ate those drugs and got Phoenix wings, not unlike Lena Danvers, Angel Girl, who's now stuck in hell. But instead of having to fight some weird dragon space worm, it's a bunch of pirates, essentially. Pirates who steal tech and valuables. Come along, and then Supergirl fights them off. Uh, Supergirl fights them off by jettisoning jettisoning herself into space, so that she can reach the yellow sun and get her power. That was actually a very good scene. Like the space battle scenes were all very good. Probably because most of it was CGI and you didn't need to shoot around Millie in order to get the fight scenes because you just CGI'd everything. And which probably like yeah, that was probably the best fight scene, the space chase where they chase around Supergirl and Supergirl then powers herself up and then dismantles the ship piece by piece. It was very good beginning shot of her. And then they go to a space truck stop. Which another thing I have to compliment about the movie is the space trucks. Was stuff like this, the just the space environment, like the kind of like the Wars, like normal day objects, but sci-fi fied. Because like the popcorn machine was a was a weird bug alien pooping out weird kernels of poop that people ate like popcorn, and that was just commonplace. Yeah, like a convenience store. They'll just be like, like lighters and or t-shirts that you could just buy on the counter. There was these individual use spacesuits that you press a button and then no, an individual use spacesuit that you press a button and then you're sealed inside a spacesuit that allows you to fly around in space in. Like I said, when dialogue was a bit weird, like they had that to be a comedic moment for Rufy, where she panics over the fact that she just put on the spacesuit and she was suddenly encapsulated inside you know, a vacuum sealed suit. She began panicking, and Supergirl went, "Don't panic," and she's like, "I'm not panicking. Don't panic. I'm not panicking." Like it was gag. It was delivered much better than how I explained it, but it also didn't make too much sense because of all the things that would have surprised and shocked her, not Supergirl flying off into space as a as a flying brick, but the fact that individual use spacesuits existed. That was a bit strange. Okay, yeah. Uh, oh, challenge mode, right. Where was I? About Rufy, oh yeah, panicking. most of the jokes also made sense and were good. There's just there's really stuff only like a couple things like that weird moment between the two that didn't make too much sense to me. But hey, not many complaints. So with the spacesuit that she's wearing, bubble that she's wearing, Supergirl could just start flying to space carrying her without needing to buy a ship to accommodate the two of them. There's some comedic scenes because, it is a big pink bubbly spacesuit. So it's very hard for her to move around in. So there's a lot of gags where she's stuck in it and she's knocked over and she's just can't really move in it, which is fun. And she has to waddle around when she's walking in it, wearing it. So there's some fun visual gags there. Like, oh yeah, after interrogating the pirates that tried to rob the space bus, uh, they got information where the brigands might be. Yeah, they find brigands in this weird planet, in this dying backwater planet where chaos reigns. So go there. That's where they encounter Lobo, played by Jason Momoa, of course, formerly known as Aquaman. He plays a pretty good job playing the character. He's funny. He never once in that film said frag or main man, which kind of sucks because I do very much like his lingo, his space lingo. Anyways, they counter Lobo, but he's really just there because he's also hunting a member of brigands due to the fact that the bounty on his head for the bounty on his head. But it's not Krem. Uh, Rufy tries to get Lobo to work together with him. Supergirl is not a fan of Lobo due to the fact that he's a crazy person. Uh, but Rufy is also kind of crazy, so it made sense that she decided to try and enlist his help. He said no due to the fact that he really didn't care, just wanted uh because he was doing stuff for cash and there was no bounty on Krem's head. There's two bar owners who oh yeah, before that, inside the bar scene before they meet Lobo, who there was a bunch of just pirates, I guess, going around, and Supergirl's trying to question them for answers. They gave her attitude, so then there was a fight scene that took place. You don't really get to see the fight scene due to the fact that it was shots where you just see Rufy, and then in the background you see people flying around and screaming in pain. Uh, which is which is a decent choice. I don't hate it. Would have been cool to see more fight scenes, yeah. Did we really need it? Not really. So having her just act, so having Rufy just have her back turned to everything, just her facial reactions as she's hearing, and also some kind of seeing things fly over her head. It was fun, and also I'm sure made filming a lot faster and easier. Well, filming a lot faster and easier, and also helped the budget a bit. So the two bar owners, a couple, are like, "Hey, thank you so much for cleaning up the mess. This is an area." Oh yeah, also the planet they go to is very much a slave planet and have a preference to young girls, which Rufy is, and girls in general, which Supergirl is. So they immediately had a target on their backs. So the kind couple invite them for shelter, and then they head into their home for rest, as apparently the husband of the two is going to make contact with someone help bring them over to help them find Krem. So Supergirl clocks the fact that the husband who began conversing was one of the pirates that Supergirl beat up and is slightly suspicious. Krem is slightly suspicious of it all, but they still head to their home, and then it's that moment where Supergirl's backstory is revealed to us. And I have to say, not that bad. I know that's crazy for me to say, a person who lost her entire family, but compared to the comic book version, it really was rather tame because a few things were actually also revealed to us. Was that backstory? One, so Argo City, much like before, was launched to space, much like in the comics explained, was launched into space before the rest of the planet got destroyed. Hence why everyone's on Argo City is still alive somehow. The thing that was changed was the fact that in the comics, it's always a thing where Supergirl is legitimately 15, 14, 16 years older than uh, Superman. It's just that she was frozen in stasis for a while when she landed before landing on Earth compared to him. This is gonna be a bit more editing than I thought because I'm pausing a lot because I'm getting distracted by this parkour. Anyways, Supergirl. Oh, God damn it! Oh, I didn't press that. Anyways, in the movie, it's revealed that Supergirl wasn't even born yet when the planet got destroyed. In fact, for the first 10-ish years, it seemed like Argo City was pretty okay, where people were living their normal lives pretty normally, and hence why Supergirl was born. So Supergirl's canonically over a decade younger than Superman, as they said as they said so in the movie itself. Supergirl lives her life normally on Argo for first 10-ish years. Then the kryptonite radiation kicks in, and people start getting poisoned and dying from, essentially space cancer. Their mother dies first, and then in a desperate bid, her father recreates the escape pod that that Superman went into, Kal-El Superman went through, made it so that she could fit inside, and she was launched into space as well. Unlike in the comics, we are actually shown how Supergirl found Crypto, where he was just a where he was just a mangy mutt that was starving, and Supergirl during the during the funeral parade, found him and decided to adopt him because, God, she needed some sort of happiness. So then Supergirl was launched from Krypton, landed on Earth, or Argo City, correction, and landed on Earth, where she had to deal with her superpowers, as an adult, which was kind of miserable for her. Hence why she wears headphones all the time to try to cancel out the noise from the superhearing. And then she explains to Rufy how much loss she endured and how she learned that getting angry and having revenge was not good, and that's Rufy should not do it. Which is fine and all, but again, in the comics, it's a lot more miserable and a lot more sad for her than we see in the movie, because not only did Supergirl lose her family, her mother and father, but like she grew up in Krypton as a whole. Like she probably for like 14 years, she babysitted Clark in many of these situations. She babysat Superman in many of these situations. Like Superman was her little baby cousin that was close enough to be considered like a brother to her. The fact that she sat and babysat for her. And then a planet explodes, so billions of people that she once knew, well, not billions, but like people she probably would have. It's not hard to imagine that in a high-tech place like uh Krypton, you probably can't do this jump. She probably has a bunch of friends who live in other parts of the planet, or live on other parts of the planet, different on separate continents even, that were now just all gone and dead. And then Argo City, for and don't forget, like in the Woman of Tomorrow comic book, she's surrounded by classmates, many of whom probably are her friends, teachers that she probably liked and respected. They all instantly died from an earthquake during the planet fracturing. This Supergirl never has to deal with any of those, uh, never has to deal with any of that strife. Again, once Argo City gets launched, thousands more die from the impact from the launch. Again, that never something that this Supergirl never has to deal with. And then when the kryptonite poisoning happens, they try to save it. They try to save the planet, the city, by putting a layer of lead onto it, protect people from the poisoning. And then it works. In fact, it actually works. Many more die because of it, but at least it works. Of course, Supergirl has to go through all of that, and of course, she, as said in the comics, works harder than anyone trying to force the city. But it works for a while, and then a meteor storm hits. Suddenly, all their hard work is vanquished again. Like you want to talk about gods being cruel. That's gods being cruel. That's a quote both in the comics and in the movie of how, you know, didn't simply blow up. gods were not that cruel. The gods were not that kind. Like that's true cruelness, you know. Having Plaid being ripped away from her, having her cousin being ripped away from her, having her mother being ripped away from her, finally have despite everything, persever persevering through all that despite everything, finally lining up, fixing the city and making sure that poison will not take any more lives, and it actually working briefly before once again, you know, the gods play another cruel trick, just destroy all your hard work, and then when you had nothing else to give, when you have no other options, that's when you know, she was forced to leave her father and go into space. Truly a miserable existence that she somehow managed to survive and thrive through, which never happened in the movie. Too maybe it's the fact that it's just too miserable and sad that does make sense. I don't know. Her Supergirl's complaints of life being hard and and her having to deal with so much more toughness than other people like than her cousin. I don't know. It just feels a lot weaker of an argument. Well, it is a weaker argument because the comic book argument was so strong that this one just feels so damn weak in comparison, which I doubt was the goal, and they probably thought, hey, just doing that is just having her lose her city was enough for her, enough of a punishment for her. But honestly, uh, I feel like it wasn't. Oddly, obviously, I feel like it wasn't. It would have been better if she suffered more, which is a wild sentence. Oh yeah, and then here comes the biggest flaw of the movie, where Supergirl just becomes really stupid for the next like 15, 20 minutes. Like, remember how because I remember how I told you that she was suspicious about the husband going to talk to one of the pirates that Supergirl beat up. For some reason, she forgets about that suspicion, and then she goes visits goes talks to she goes talks to a couple after a few hours of waiting because again they're at a time crunch, so she wants to know if she can find Krem as quickly as possible. And then they give her some tea, and this whole scene where she walks into the kitchen and she's looking around, you see her be suspicious. You see her notice like a picture of a daughter, of a young teenage daughter, yet no evidence of the daughter being around here at all. And understanding that this is a dying planet where a bunch of pirates roam the area looking to capture young girls like the daughter that she sees in the pictures. And then, you know, obviously the family is looking very suspicious. And don't forget, she has super hearing and X-ray vision. She can both hear the heartbeats probably of them race very quickly, as well that she should be able to use her X-ray visions through the walls to see the big old brigand ship flying overhead them, or at least hear the big old brigand ship flying overhead them. Because like we see like the wife look through the windows to see if the ship is coming, and indeed it is. Supergirl doesn't notice it for some reason, and then she drinks the tea. Tea is poisoned. Was yellow sun in her blood. She's able to process the poison enough for it to not kill her, but it does hurt her a lot. Editor Bill here. I like to say furthermore to this scene, it felt like because they meet up with the Brigands and Krim right after this, they needed an excuse for why Supergirl just doesn't start making shop against them. Because she does so, once she's at 100%, she does indeed just wreck shop against all the Brigands. But if she wrecks shop right now, the movie will be over about half an hour too soon. So she needed an excuse to not be able to just beat everyone up. Which I feel like there's probably a better way for that to happen, but oh well. And then there's also a gag where she's trying to find milk to line her stomach with to help slow down the pain of the poison, and the milk she gets is some weird alien slug creature. Uh, Krim and his goons and attack Supergirl and try to kidnap Rufy. Supergirl manages to fly away. Supergirl manages to save Rufy, fly away, and then again, like I said, that house hall room fight scene occurred. That wasn't too great because again, it was just hard to see clearly the fight choreography clearly, which kinda sucks. But after that, they go into the open, stuck inside all the prisoners and stuck inside a pirate ship, and then a big fight scene occurs where you have pirates, the brigands, trying to capture recapture their merchandise, and then Supergirl's just going around beating them up. And of course, like I said, this planet is where Lobo was located, looking for a brigand himself. He comes in, more chaos and more fighting occurs, which was all fun. Him throwing the chain around, running people over with a motorcycle, Supergirl flying around, laser visioning, and slamming into dudes. That was really fun. But again, Supergirl, very stupid, fell for the poisoning, which I guess fine. She was trying to look at put the good into people, but you know. It's pretty funny how naive she was. Rufy, how naive Superman was when she fell for such an obvious play, hook, line, and sinker. But what can you do? Through the chaos of fighting, Trim splits off from the group, looking to chase down the bar couple's daughter, who was instantly freed during the chaos of everything. And Supergirl loses sight of her through all the chaos, which makes sense. That I don't find too weird. Like there's a lot of noise, a lot of fighting, a lot of combat. Rufy then also goes hunting for Krem because she still wants her revenge. Then comes a point where they have Supergirl. It then comes to a point where Supergirl's flying around, finally locates Krem, also locates that Rufy is behind Krem, aiming to stab her. It's aiming to stab Krem. So, so Supergirl intervenes and grabs Rufy and flies her away from Krem. And then Krem then uses the opportunity to, of course, escape, find a bar owner couple who have also found their daughter, kills the couple, and then kills the daughter. And then just as Supergirl returns, and is obviously, big tragic moment where, Supergirl failed at protecting someone and people die from it. And then, Rufy is obviously very angry the fact that that Supergirl stopped her from killing Prem due to the fact that, well, a family just died because of that. And, Supergirl can get the argument of you will go insane trying to kill and get revenge, going onto this journey of revenge. However, that being said, Supergirl probably could have just grabbed, Krem and beat him up once she did so, instead of grabbing Rufy, and then all this would have been avoided, especially the next part, which is genuinely, I think, the stupidest part of the film. There is some personal bias to it. Let me explain. So after this big argument, Supergirl then flies up into space, does a big old scream, which is a pretty iconic moment in the comic series, where she witnesses a bunch of Krem's heinous acts, and then she goes up to space to scream out her pain. Supergirl then goes to the pirate, who I think at this point is a brigand. Like we find out eventually, he might probably is a brigand, and interrogates him for the location of uh what's it called? Of Krem. Like obviously she should have been smarter than this. She should have started with this to begin with and been suspicious to begin with, but whatever, too little too late now. So after being intimidated by the superpowered Kryptonian, the dude says, okay, yeah, sure, I'll show you the place. But in order to do that, you must be blindfolded. Supergirl agrees, and because she has X-ray vision. And in fact, we even see her use her X-ray vision to check the time on her stopwatch to see how much time they had left through the mask, through the blindfold, uh, to find the location of where she was hidden, and to see how much time she had left before Crypto was going to, pass from the poison. But for whatever reason, she could have just said no and just been meaner and tortured them some more. Because we know that she's can be pretty cold-hearted when she needs to be. But for some reason she doesn't. She just says yes to these people who definitely have a connection to, the brigands. And she just says yes, and then surprise, surprise, they wind up on a kryptonite planet.
Editor Bill here. My microphone broke right now, so need to replace that. While doing so, but I need to add this part. I was going to say that she has X-ray vision. She probably should have been able to see while they're traveling through space that, big old green sun. But she didn't. for some reason. I mean, I guess technically we see the X-ray vision things are like in like blue and grays, but you probably could tell that the yellow glow and the green glow are slightly different, or that, maybe not be so trusting and notice that there are two big glowing orbs of light sitting in space. Why would there be two glowing orbs? You should be a bit suspicious about that. And also, when you were nearly landing down to the planet, maybe use your X-ray vision and see when you're orbiting space. Because you could literally just punch a hole inside the spaceship and then fly down onto the planet if you wanted to, if you noticed something was amok. But she didn't because she needed to be stupid for that moment. That was kind of a weak part.
Because of course, not, no, sorry, correction. They wind up a planet that has a yellow sun, green sun, like that comic, like issue number 5, which I hated. Well, I didn't hate. The art was beautiful, but the plot itself was nonsensical. Of course, because of course they did. Of course they wound up on a planet which has a Kryptonian. It's not even explained why the sun is green. Superman and subsequently every Kryptonian's power is on. You know, yellow suns give you power, blue suns give them even more power, red suns deactivate them, white dwarf stars, to be honest, I don't know. And in fact, in the comics, green suns aren't a common thing either. It's explained in the comics how the green sun was created purposefully to try and kill Superman. That's why, and then Supergirl just winds up being on the planet through magic shenanigans, which again, stupid. But this personal bias coming in real hard and strong now. Where the heck am I going? So I don't know why the sun is green here. I guess just green suns exist. Like in the comics, the sun existed due to oh, so annoying. The sun exists because they were trying to because a bunch of aliens were trying to stop Superman. This one is just it just happens to exist for whatever reason. And the brigands are all there, located here. I guess in preparation for Supergirl, I guess, if nothing, which kind of makes sense then. But again, why do they know that? Why do they know? Again, how do they know that? Again, all the Kryptonians are dead, save for her and Superman. And Superman's still stuck on planet Earth. He lives there. Yes, he's been roaming around for like the last 15-ish years. He hasn't been in that deep space, has he? Why does everyone know that the green sun will kill her? Why do people know that kryptonite is poisonous? Everyone who knew should be dead because they were all Kryptonians who died. So why? I don't know. It just is because the plot needed it. It's annoying. Okay. Anyways, I digress. The green sun's a thing. And Rufy who snuck onto the pirate ship, manages to jump off and drag Supergirl into safety, the relative safety of a cave where the green sun isn't shining on them as hard. Still, I don't know why it exists, but she needs to be weakened. Blah 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 blah. It's so dumb. And also, she was an idiot for even agreeing to follow these guys in the first place. Like for someone who criticized again, she was a lot more naive than Superman. It feels like comparing the two movies. It was kind of silly. I hate that green sun. I hate it. But anyways, but again, much like in the comics, the yellow and green sun switch positions every 12 hours. So Supergirl just needs to sit there and wait 12 hours to get her yellow sunlight back. Supergirl is really thirsty and needs a drink of water, so Rufy goes to the lake to try and grab some water for her, only to be caught by the brigands who are, using this as a base camp. She gets put in jail. She discovers Lobo is also in jail. Krem comes along and asks, "Hey, tell me where Supergirl is." And she goes, "No." Obviously. Left alone in this jail cell with Lobo in another jail cell, she hatches a plan. She lures the guard in and then beats the guard up. And you might be wondering, hey, how did she overpower this big training guard when she's just like 13, 14-year-old? Well, as explained, like it was explained, the jails were covered with these poisonous barbs that will paralyze and kill you if you try to if they stab you. And the guard enters the place. He stabs him with one of the poisonous barbs and paralyzes him, and she's free. And then she makes Lobo promise that he'll help them beat up brigands. And of course, Lobo says yes. And Lobo just breaks himself free because, of course, Lobo couldn't do that. It's pretty fun. I like that. I like that guy. That was a good joke. Then we cut back to Supergirl having more flashbacks. Mainly of her flashbacks was living of being on Earth with Clark and trying to figure things out, and also pain of her past, which again, not as impactful as the comic book version, but still, I guess it's impactful enough. The time to pass, a bunch of time passes, and eventually the yellow sun rises back up. Supergirl gets hit by the yellow sun, is repowered up. Oh yeah, by this time, Ruffy, when she snuck into the pirate ship, also stole Supergirl's uniform back and managed to hand it to her inside the cave right before she left to try and grab water for Supergirl and getting kidnapped again. Supergirl was the yellow sun power arrives just in time as Ruffy, who escaped prison, got captured again, and then she starts destroying and wrecking house. Lobo comes in, does the same thing. Krem, however, has, kryptonite arrows. Though how he found the kryptonite is beyond me, because I said in the like how they explained the Superman movie, at least on Earth, kryptonite for the most part was destroyed. You had what's his name, right? Metamorpho, uh, create kryptonite because, quite frankly, they could not find any more kryptonite on Earth. So evidently, it was a very rare resource. So how in the world did Krem find a bunch and to create kryptonite arrows with? I actually accidentally exited server somehow. I have no idea. And how did he know that kryptonite was poisonous to Kryptonians? Because again, Kryptonians have been dead for the most part for the better part of like 30 years. Again, I have no idea, but he knows about them and he has them. How this happened makes no sense, but it happened. So Supergirl's slightly depowered due to the fact that her body is now trying to process through the Kryptonian poisoning. At least the yellow sun is around, so she's able to, recharge her batteries. And eventually this big fight with Lobo and Supergirl against the brigands eventually destroys the ship. Lobo then cuts the head off the bounty that he wanted and leaves, saying, "See ya, dits." But it does sound a lot like "see ya, tits," which I think fits Lobo better and is funnier. But, "see ya, dits" also makes sense, I guess. Like, he is that kind of crass character who would say that to someone. So with Lobo gone, a bunch of the brigands are still around, and they still have their ships and motorcycles and their weapons. And Supergirl still has to deal with all that, but she has healed for the most part back to full health. Rufy away from the crashing big ship. She managed to bring Rufy away from the big crashing ship, and then goes off to save the rest of the prisoners still stuck inside the ship that's about to be destroyed. Krem and the remaining brigands then go and charge after Rufy, but before Krem can attack Rufy, Supergirl finally manages to save all the prisoners and flies out and destroys all the brigands and beats up Krem a bit. And at that point, the fire alarm sounded inside the movie theater. I got my money back, which is nice. In fact, I just got a Cineplex ticket, which I think the ticket I got to watch Supergirl originally was just the most basic regular ticket you could get. But this one was the refund ticket I got. I think I could go 3D or have a slightly better seat, which in the grand scheme of things is only like a few dollars lag. Which in the grand scheme of things is only like a few dollars more, but it's, hey, look, I get more extra popcorn, I guess, next time I come and watch a movie. And I don't think there's an expiry date, which is nice. But then I saw some clips afterwards, and I saw, Supergirl does the fight scene, and you do feel like there's James Gunn influences to this stuff. Like, there's how do I explain? Like a James Gunn rock music playing in the background as a fight scene takes place, like a very cinematic style fight scene takes place. That's how Supergirl dispatches the last of the brigands. But it also doesn't just didn't quite feel as impactful as like a Guardians of the Galaxy or Suicide Squad style like music action sequence. Because again, it's not James Gunn directing it, I suppose. So makes sense why you see the influence, but you don't see the full impact of it. But you don't feel the full impact of it. It wasn't bad though. And then with all the brigands taken care of, Rufy is one-on-one with Krem, who was very injured from getting beat up by Supergirl. Rufy eventually decides, hey, you know what? I'm not going to kill you. I don't have time to waste with you. And lets him lay there in peace. Supergirl then comes up and then stabs him. So this is a big difference in the comics. In the comics, as I said in the video before, Rufy actually beats up Krem in 1-1 combat because Krem's a regular alien human, and Rufy's also a regular alien human, and they fight, and then she wins their 1-on-1 duel in combat, while Supergirl fights the Brigands off in space with her boyfriend horse. Earl was there instead of the boyfriend horse, which, you know what, probably better, all honesty. And then after Rufy beats up Krem, she decides, same thing, not worth the blood, not worth the effort to kill, and lets him go. Supergirl, however, who was also part of this journey and had to see the consequences of Krem's actions, has had enough and was very much willing to kill Krem at this point. And then they put and then they put Krem into the Phantom Zone for like 300 years and torture him that way. Or it's penance, but yeah, 300 years of solitude. To be perfectly honest, I'm fine with the choice, the creative choice to have Supergirl kill it. Like the whole idea of Rufy is innocent, Superman's innocent, she'll do the dirty work for them. That makes sense. Like they're trying to say like she's so much more mature and lot less, sees the world in a lot less rose-tinted glasses than Superman does. It didn't feel like the way. She got tricked a lot. She was depicted kind of like an idiot, more so than they probably intended, to the detriment of her character, which is a shame. But anyways, the movie then after she kills Krim, she takes the antidote, goes back, saves Crypto. Rufy originally the plan was to have Rufy just go back her home, start a new life on her own planet. But then she joins Supergirl up into her ship, and they fly back, and they fly around space some more. And then when Supergirl finally returns back on Earth, we don't know where Rufy is. Maybe she dropped her off somewhere else. Who knows? But whatever the case is, Supergirl says hello to Superman and decides that, hey, I'm going to try to make Earth my home now, which is a which is touching, very touching. And then they have a gag where Superman's like, where Crypto starts eating chocolate, and Superman's all like, "Oh God, he's gonna get sick," which is, and then that's how the movie ends, which I really greatly enjoyed. Like that was very fun. Oh yeah, also Superman made a few cameo appearances. Like I said, you see Supergirl meet Superman for the first time, but you also see like Superman calling Supergirl being like, "Hey, listen, like when are you coming back to Earth? I miss you. We miss friend. We're trying to make some friends and make Earth your home and everything." And Supergirl's just like, I don't know if I want to. Doesn't feel like I don't feel like this is my home really, And now she's trying to make Earth her home, which is pretty good. Which is I like that part. Overall, like I said, this movie was pretty meh. Like it got 6 out of 10 or 6.2 out of 10 out of on IMDb. Yeah, no, probably. But again, compared to the Supergirl movie, oh my God, was this so much better? The 1984 movie was indeed a 1984 Orwellian hell compared to this thing. Like my God, it's like chalk and cheese between the two. Uh, Still, overall, I do think the movie probably is around a 6.5, 7 out of 10. If you like superhero movies, go ahead and watch it. If you want like a alright adaptation of a comic book series that was pretty popular, go ahead and watch it. Uh, it's nothing special. It does feel like Phase One, Phase Two, Marvel Phase One, Phase. It's not dissimilar to like a Marvel Phase One, Phase Two like development movie, like a Thor or an Incredible Hulk, where it's like it's fine. It's not bad, but people expect a movie like this, big superhero movie like this to be a big blockbuster success like an Iron Man, beat all the box office movies. It doesn't help that, Toy Story is around. So it's dealing with some stiff competition in that sense, but it's not a bad movie. Go ahead and watch it. It's pretty good. The actors are all good. Dialogue's all good. Everything is for most. It's all right. Everything is pretty all right. I'll be honest, the script is probably average to slightly below average. Like it's coherent, but there's a lot of improvement that could have been made. But again, the acting is really good. Krem's generic, but hey, the actor's doing a good job with them. Everything's pretty all right. It's not a bad movie overall. God, I've rambled for a long time, and actually I have to cut some of these because I paused a lot and said absolutely nothing for like a minute long for like a minute long in length at a time, and sometimes I just mix my words up and can't speak proper English. So I'm gonna have to quickly edit this thing down, and I don't know how to put this. Well, that was my opinions. Supergirl movie, not bad. That's my review. Hope you enjoyed listening, and I'll see you later in the next nerdy thing. This is Captain Bill signing out. See you.